Welcome back. In this task, we will try to understand the different components of the web app that we created in the previous task, and we will see how those components work together. And to help us get there, we will first look at packages. Packages in R enable us to add new functionality to the R language. For example, R was created before the advent of the internet, and yet today we are able to use R to create web apps that can be deployed to the internet. This is made possible by packages. In R, packages bundle functions that can be used by anyone. There is a well-defined mechanism for creating packages in R. Packages are created by individual developers as well as developers working within organizations. In the R ecosystem, it is common for developers to share functions that they have written for their own use if they feel that they can be useful for the rest of the community. Every month, hundreds of new packages are created and made available to the community. Packages are accompanied by documentation that tell the users how to use the functions in a package. Later in this guided project, we'll see some examples of documentation. To use a package, we first need to install the package, and we saw how to do that in the previous task when we installed the Shiny package. Once we have installed the package, we have to instruct R to use the package, and we use the library function to do so. And we saw an example of that as well in the previous task. For our app, we will use functions from the following three packages: Shiny, Leaflet, and Shiny Themes. The Shiny package provides functions to create the web app. The Leaflet package provides functions to draw the maps. The Shiny Themes package provides functions to add themes to our web app, to style our web app. So now let's switch to RStudio Cloud. I'll switch the display mode so you get your workspace back. And this is where we left off in the previous task. Let me create some space here. The first instruction is this library function call, and we use it to tell R the packages that we need to use. And we provide the name of the package as an argument to the library function call. Here we say Shiny. Next, we define the UI. Here we specify what we need in the web page, and we use the fluid page function from the Shiny package to do so. To the fluid page function, we provide arguments specifying what we need. In our case, we need a plot, so we use the plot output function from the Shiny package. And the plot output function, being a function, it can take arguments, and we specify the argument myPlot, which is an identifier. The return value from the fluid page function is assigned to this variable UI. Now, what we've done here is we've just said what we need in the web page, but we have not told Shiny how to create it, and Shiny wouldn't know what we want. So we have to tell it how to create what we want. And here we will see a pattern that repeats often in Shiny. There are two functions that work in tandem. One function is used to specify what we want. The other function is used to specify how to create what we want on the web page. In this case, the two functions are plot output and render plot. The plot output function is used to specify what we want on the web page, and the render plot function is used to create what we want on the web page. And they are connected by this identifier, as we will see shortly. So now let's come to the server. The server function is used to create the elements that we want on the web page. It has two arguments, input and output. Both are list-like. The input argument provides inputs to the app. For example, if you had a drop-down in the app, that would serve as an input. In this second guided project, our app doesn't have an input, so we'll ignore that. We do have output. The output is used to hold the elements that we want to display on the page. And we will see how we assign elements to output. So now let's look at the render plot function. As you can see, the output of the render plot function is assigned to output. Or let me say this, the return value of render plot is assigned to output using the named element myPlot. As I said, output is list-like, so we assign elements to a list using dollar and the named element. So the name that we're using is myPlot, and this corresponds to this myPlot, and that is how we connect this output, this plot output, to this render plot. And as I said, the return value of the render plot is assigned to output, and that is how the output argument holds the elements that we want to display on the web page. Let's look at the render plot function. So this is the open parenthesis and this is the close parenthesis. And within those, we provide arguments to a function. And the argument is this one, starting from this open curly brace, this instruction, and this closed curly brace. And these three together form the argument to the render plot. This is actually a code block which contains instructions to create the plot, and we are providing a code block to the render plot function as an argument. Now it's normally written like this, and I'll show you. I put it out separately just to highlight that it's an argument. Normally you'll see it written like this, and we will follow the same convention. Finally, we have this function called Shiny App that takes these two arguments, UI and server. Those are defined here. Notice that nowhere do we call the server function directly, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Now let's run this app, but instead of running the app using the run app button, we will execute the instructions one by one. Let's just verify that it's set to external. It is. Now let me execute these instructions and you can watch the console. So we just loaded the library. We just loaded the Shiny package. Now we define the UI and then the server. And now we will invoke the Shiny app function. And notice that we've given it the UI and the server that we just defined. And this is where the magic happens. So let me execute this instruction. And as you can see, we got the app running in the browser. So it was the execution of the Shiny app function that set the things in motion for us. So let me stop this. So let's understand what happened. When we executed the Shiny app function, it in turn invoked the server function. The render plot function was invoked, the instructions were executed, the plot was generated, and that plot was displayed on the web page. What if we had more than one plot? How would it work then? Let me show you. So I'll key in some instructions to show you what would happen in case we have more than one plot. So I have added one more plot output in the UI. And since these are arguments to a function, we separate them using commas. Note that the identifier is myplot2. It has to be a different identifier because it's a different plot. And in the server, I have added code to create that plot. And this is exactly the same as the previous code. We have this render plot, we have this plot function. It's just that I'm coloring it a different color. I'm giving it a different color to distinguish it from the first one. And notice the named element is myplot2 because, let me show you that again. The identifier here was myplot2. And we have myplot first and then myplot2 next. And that's how they will appear on the web page. Let me save this, and we'll do a run app here this time. And as you can see, we have two plots now. The first one has points in the tan color. The second one, the points are colored salmon. So Shiny laid these two plots one after the other on the web page. In the third guided project, we will look into some more details into how Shiny lays out a web page, the different components of the web page. Before we end this task, let me show you a couple more things. So in this task, we use the plot output and render plot functions. Let's see some other pairs. This page displays some of those functions. Let me scroll up a bit. And there's this functions data table output to create a data table, HTML output, image output, plot output, so on. And then this is corresponding render functions. So we have render data table for data table, render image. We used render plot. So as you can see, there's several such function pairs. That's one. The other thing I wanted to show you was an alternate to the fluid page function. The fluid page function is one of the ways to specify what we want on the web page. Then we have a function called navbar page. And if we use this, then we get a different type of app. Let me show you an example. This is a Shiny app. And as you can see, I got a navigation bar on the top with different menu. If I click on summary, I get a summary, and then I can have nested menu items. So there's several such functions that we can use to get a different look and feel. And I encourage you to try those out on your own. There's quite a bit you can do in Shiny. In this task, we understood the different components of a web app and how they work together. In the next task, we will see a slightly different way of creating a Shiny web app. That's the approach that we will use going forward. So in the next task, we will spend some time understanding that method. So I'll see you in a short while.